Today we will uncover how America is unintentionally dismantling the very foundation of its currency dominance. Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that American dollar is no longer world's most powerful currency. Sounds shocking, right? But that's maybe the trajectory we are heading towards. The US dollar, once the undisputed king of global trade, is now facing threats, many of them self-inflicted. Stay tuned for real-world examples, comparative data, and actionable insights. Let's start with some context. Since the Bretton Woods Agreements of 1944, the US dollar has been world's primary reserve currency. It's used for international trade, central bank reserves, and commodities like oil, giving US immense economic power.
At Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, delegates from 44 allied and associate countries arrived for the opening of the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. Invited by President Roosevelt to the first major world financial meeting since the London Conference of 1933, they will work in the seclusion of this White Mountains resort. United States Treasury Secretary Morgenthau heads the American delegation. On the opening day, in his role of acting conference president, he addresses the meeting. To be discussed are plans for the stabilization of world currencies.
About 60% of global foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars, and about 80% of international trade is invoiced in dollars. When countries like India and Brazil import oil, they often pay in dollars, even if neither of them is trading directly with US. This gives US a significant advantage. Now compare this with Euro, which accounts for only 20% of global trade, or Chinese yuan, which is still under 3%. This disparity underscores how dominant the dollar has been historically. This dominance has allowed US to 1. Borrow cheaply from the world.
In 1992, the debt was about $4 trillion. It has now surpassed $35 trillion. It hit that number for the first time on Monday and equates to over $104,000 per person.
2. Impose sanctions easily by cutting off access to the dollar system.
We have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I'd put them on and take them off as quickly as possible.
And third is maintain its global influence. But now cracks are starting to show. Let's explore why. Before we move forward, please do consider subscribing to this channel if the subjects of business, finance, and economy are of interest to you. One of the biggest mistakes that America is making is overusing its sanction power.
The problem with what we have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I'd put them on and take them off as quickly as possible because ultimately it kills your dollar and it kills everything the dollar represents, and we have to continue to have that be the world currency. I think it's important. You're losing Iran. You're losing Russia. China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries.
The US has used the dollar as weapon, targeting countries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. While sanctions can be effective, but overuse has led to countries seek alternatives. Let's understand this with an example. Russia and China have significantly increased trade in their local currencies, bypassing the dollar entirely. In 2022, over 25% of the trade between these two countries was in rubles or yuan. According to Russian Central Bank, the share of yuan in Russia's foreign exchange transactions surged from less than 1% in 2018 to 14% in 2023.
Now, the proportion of yuan trading in Russia's foreign exchange market hit a fresh record in March, and this reflects the currency's increasing significance of the Russian economy. The percentage of settlements denominated in non-dollar or non-euro currencies rose from 39 to 67% in the last 12 months. The exchange-traded yuan reached a record turnover of 53%, and its percentage in the over-the-counter trading also reached a new high at 39.6%. Governor Elvira Nabiullina stated in a parliamentary speech that Russia is preparing the groundwork for settlement in various national currencies. She said the share of the dollar and the euro has practically halved.
The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are even exploring new reserve currency to reduce their dependence on US dollar. This erosion of trust in dollar's neutrality is prompting nations to diversify away from it. Which other country has faced the brunt of US sanctions? Do let me know in the comments. The second issue is US's monetary policy. During 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic, the Federal Reserve printed trillions of dollars to stabilize its economy. While it helped in short term, it has undermined long-term confidence in dollar. Between 2020 and 2021, the US printed nearly 40% of all dollars ever created in history. This unprecedented expansion of money supply fueled inflation, which hit 40-year high in 2022. The US inflation rate in 2022 averaged 8% compared to 5.9% 3% in Eurozone and 2.5% in Japan. This discrepancy highlights the risk of over-reliance on quantitative easing. This excessive money printing has 1. Reduced the dollar's purchasing power. A gallon of milk or tank of gas now costs significantly more. 2. Made foreign holders of US debt nervous about long-term value of their investments. When foreign investors lose confidence, they look for safer alternatives, and that's bad news for dollar. The global balance of power is shifting. The rising economies like China and India are challenging the US-led financial order. For instance, China's Belt and Road Initiative promotes trade in local currencies. Saudi Arabia is now considering accepting other currencies for its oil rather than just dollar. In 2023, Saudi Arabia signed agreements with China to settle oil trades in yuan for the first time. This marks a significant departure from petrodollar system that has dominated since 1970s. The yuan share in global trade financing has risen from close to 4.5% in 2023 from a figure of 1.5% in 2015. While still small as compared to dollar, the growth trajectory is worth noting. These shifts reduce the relevance of dollar in global trade and weaken its status as world's reserve currency. America's national debt is another self-inflicted wound. The US debt has surpassed $33 trillion and continues to grow.
The debt was about $4 trillion. It has now surpassed $35 trillion. It hit that number for the first time on Monday and equates to over $104,000 per person.
Foreign investors, especially China and Japan, have been major buyers of US Treasury, but now they are reducing their holdings. In 2023, China's holding of US Treasury bonds fell to their lowest level in over a decade. This signals a growing lack of confidence in America's ability to manage its debts. The US GDP debt to ratio now stands at 125% compared to around 90% for Eurozone and 60% for India. High debt levels weaken investors' confidence and make borrowing more expensive. If the US doesn't address its debt problem, it risks the loss of confidence in its financial stability and dollar's role as world's safe haven. If you find the content of this video relevant and interesting, please do hit the subscribe button, and also do not forget to share this video with others who would be interested in such subject. So what happens if the dollar loses its dominance? Here are few possibilities. 1. Higher borrowing costs for US government. 2. Reduced global influence of US. 3. Increased volatility in global financial markets. 4. A multiple global currency world with alternatives like Chinese yuan, euro or BRICS currency. Countries like Brazil and Argentina are already experimenting with bilateral trade agreements that exclude the dollar, showcasing how a multipolar world could work. According to IMF, the dollar's share in global reserves fell from 71% in 1999 to 59% in 2023, while other currencies like yuan and euro have gained ground. To prevent this, the dollar must 1. Use sanctions more judiciously. 2. Adopt responsible monetary policies. 3. Strengthen alliances with the global partners. 4. Address its debt crisis with long-term solutions. The dollar's decline is not inevitable, but it's a wake-up call for policymakers in Washington. What do you think? Is the US dollar's decline inevitable, or can America turn the things around? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this video. Be inspired, keep building.